Hello, Tom LaVecchia here with a very, very special live edition of the Armchair NBA. Before I introduce my esteemed guest who's in studio, I'm on my third day of my 30 for 30. I'm going to do 30 shows. This is day 3. 30 days of exercise, at least 30 minutes per day. I just already put that in. And 30 minutes of audible or reading every day. I'm reading Mastery by Robert Greene, the guy who wrote 48 Laws of Power. I'm working to get him on the show. I'm in touch with his people. They're kind of giving me the Heisman, but I'm trying to work it out. But nevertheless, we have a very special guest today, Myron Sugerman, who is dubbed the last Jewish gangster. And the stories this guy's could tell and the wealth of knowledge this guy has, you're allowed to ask questions. Not allowed, obviously, you're always allowed. But you're encouraged to ask questions on the screen. I'm going to be looking down here as well if I can't see them, as well as we're going to have a good conversation with Myron today. So, Myron, let's start it off. And Myron was on the show earlier, but we're going to kind of refresh and just kind of wing it. We do have some questions that were pre-submitted, but we'll jump right in. Myron, why don't you start off? Where did you grow up?
So I was born in Newark. My father was born in Newark. I'm second generation. My kids are born in Newark. That's third. We're Newark, but Newark in suburbs.
Okay.
So I grew up in the suburbs. Went to Columbia High School in Maplewood, South Orange. Then went to Bucknell University. Did a semester at Seton Hall Night School.
Hold on. You're cutting something important out. You got to share with the audience our first grade story. And for those on the rerun, you guys are going to enjoy this. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe. And if you want to hit thanks to contribute to the channel, we'd appreciate it. Give us how you got kicked out of Bucknell, but you got into Seton Hall, and somebody who's pretty well known in the.
So my junior year at Bucknell University, we celebrated Rosh Hashanah. I promoted a little bit of a party that the rabbis wouldn't necessarily approve of. Yeah. However, the Bucknell University didn't approve of it either.
Uh-huh.
All right, and so they asked me to take a break. So I got thrown out of Bucknell, and my father, who was partners with Jerry Katina, who was the boss of the Genovese crime family,
Yep,
who was a terrific guy, a very special guy.
I say he's the most powerful mobster you never heard of.
That's
up there.
That's a good way of describing Jerry Katina. And if you want to have a session on Jerry Katina, that man, according to my father, could have been the head of the Pentagon or the head of General Electric. And in my humble opinion, that man was so capable as an administrator that he could have easily have served as president of the United States of America and its commander-in-chief of its armed forces.
Mm.
He was a iron fist in a silk glove, as described by a friend of mine, Stevie. Mr. Katina once said to me many, many years ago that we were at a party, and he was already 89 years of age and still had all of the possession of all of his mental faculties.
God bless. And
he said to me at the party, I sat with him all night, and he said to me, Myron, I was just a chief operating officer of just another large-size corporation. Mr. Katina, getting back to the story of Seton Hall, saw my father a little bit disappointed or a little bit annoyed with me, and he said, "What's the matter, Shuggy?" He says, my son, Myron, got kicked out of Bucknell, and he's got to be home for this semester. So Mr. Katina says, "You want him to go to school?" He says, "I want him to work during the day and go to school at night." He said, "No problem." Mr. Katina picks up the telephone. "Hello, Father Fleming, Dean of the Seton Hall University Night School. How are you?" Ultimately, Father Fleming becomes Monsignor Edward Fleming. He says, "How are you?" He says, "I got a student for you." He says, "Mr. Katina, it's 3 weeks into the semester." He said, "What time is he supposed to be down there tonight?"
No, let's bypass admissions. Let's bypass recommendations. Jerry Katina calls you in.
That's it. So
You get admitted.
So Fleming says, Mr. Katina, this must be an extremely good, special Catholic lad that you're sending me.
Yeah.
He says, it's Sugarman's, my partner in the jukebox business, the vending machine business. It's his son. And he'll be down tonight. And sure enough, I go down to see your Father Fleming and check in at his office. And he's a terrific guy, good-looking Irish priest, tall, handsome, robust, better looking than John Kennedy.
There you go.
Of that type. But he was an athlete. So anyways, we have a nice conversation. He says, but by the way, Myron, why did you get expelled from Bucknell University? I said, Father, I don't want to bore you. He says, no. He says, did you do something that, he says, we have confession in the Catholic Church. And would you mind, you want to confess? I said, confess what? He said, tell me what happened. I said, he said, tell me. So I said, okay, I'll tell you. And I told him, and he said, that's it. Get the hell out of here. Go to class. Anyways, I wind up in taking Italian. Right? I studied Italian. And I was the best in the class. I was the best in the class in Italian. Not only I was the best in the class in Italian, I was the best in terms of in reciting the Ave Maria in Italian, the Hail Mary. All right? Nel nome del Padre, Figlio, Spirito Santo. All right? Okay. So the teacher, the professor used to call him. I said, but professor, he said, I'm Jewish. He says, that's all right. You're the best in the class. Go ahead, lead the class in the Ave Maria. All right?
I love it. Now, but so kind of want to brush on a few things because you were around some legends and you're a legend yourself. So like, if you haven't seen my previous interviews with Myron, he was on Value Entertainment with Patrick Bet-David, amongst others. So this guy is a legend in his own right, and also was around a lot of legends. Tell him to take this. Art of self-complimenting without being conceited. That's interesting. He says, "Tell him to tell you a Sammy the Bull sit down." That's kids. That kid's dynamite. That ring a bell?
Yeah.
Is that a story? I don't know. Maybe it's a story you talked about.
Yes, he wants to know that story.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so I get a phone call that I'm being come down to Bloomfield Avenue. I used to the two fellas that answered to Louis Red. I was with Louis Red. Louis Gatto was he was a capo in the Genovese crew from Patterson. He was
very powerful.
Dynamite. He was powerful. He was a dynamite guy. Yeah. He was old school. You didn't go to a sit down without first. You had to eat the bread. You had to break bread. You had to eat the pasta. You had to drink the wine, and you had to have your cup of espresso before you could talk the purpose for being in your business. Now, I get a phone call. I go to see JR and Frankie Shadows. They were two of Louis Red's guys. And they said, come on, you're going to spend a day with us. And we go to one place, another place. It took us 4 or 5 places before we finally get to the final place, which was an Italian restaurant called the Sicilian on 2nd Avenue, 19th Street. Walked in, and everybody in that place that day was a mob-connected guy, either with Gambinos or with the Genovese. And I was told, sit at your table with the Genovese guys, all right? Everybody, first of all the bodyguards were, for both sides, were at the bar. Anybody that showed up that day to eat was told that it's a private affair, and it's reserved for the day or for the afternoon. And sure enough, I was sent to sit at the Genovese table until I was to be called. Now, what it was a monstrous sit down between Genovese and the Gambinos, and who was monitoring the afternoon was Sammy the Bull.
Oh, wow.
And that was the first time and only time I ever met him. And my guy, JR, says to me, "You're going to meet Sammy the Bull." He was a dynamite guy, this young fella. And sure enough, we had you waited. They would take, first of all, the guys that dealt with garbage, the guys with concrete, the guys with the longshoremen, the guys, the unions, everything was to resolve problems. Your question from your listener about Sammy is I think he really wants me to go a little bit further in explaining.
We're here. Let's do it. And
Okay.
I'm actually really interested.
So it really shows the genius of the organization. It's called organized crime, but you had guys sitting there. First of all, on our side of the table, I sat. Interestingly, I sat on the side with the Gambino side, while my guy Louis Red was opposite of me, and all of the high-ranking members of the Genovese were on the other side. The fella on the end of the table that was asking me what my reason for being there was Jimmy Fiala, Jimmy Brown, who became the acting boss of the Gambino. By the way, that wasn't the first time I met Jimmy Brown, Jimmy Fiala. He was a fabulous personality. I loved that old man. I had two sit-downs with one. We had one dispute with one individual from his crew a couple of years prior, and it was held at the Angelo's on Mulberry Street.
Oh, yeah.
It was in the back room of Angelo's on Mulberry Street.
I had a birthday party in that back room.
Back room was specifically reserved for sit-downs. So at the second sit-down, because we didn't get the problem resolved in the first sit-down, Jimmy Brown said, "Let's clean it all up. Let's get the slate all resolved." And he said something to the guy's name was Tony. I'm not going to go into any details, but he said, "All right, tell him, all right, I've been using your technicians, your slot technicians." I said, "For heaven's sakes, Tony, why don't you call me next time you're going to use them? Because I'll tell you which one of the guys to use. Yeah. You might be using a guy that doesn't know the first thing of what he's doing. It's going to be an embarrassment for me." When Jimmy Brown heard that, he said to Tony, he says, "You see this guy sitting next to me? I love him." All right? He's a real terrific guy. And you're never going to be 10% of what this guy, unless you're going to be like him. He turns to me and he says to me, "What do you want? What can I do for you?" I said, "Well, you've been smoking some pretty good cigars. Is that?" Puts his hand in his vest pocket and grabs 10 cigars, a handful of cigars, hands for the cigars. Here you are, kid. Now, that was the second time I met Jimmy, and the third time was at that meeting at the Sicilian restaurant in Manhattan. Look at these old timers. Maybe they didn't graduate Georgetown University. Yeah. Maybe they didn't graduate Harvard School of Business, Harvard or Pennsylvania School of Business, Wharton School of Business. Yeah. But they had brilliant minds, yeah. Fox-like mentality, yeah. Second to none. And you'll never be able to learn that. You never can learn what they learn from human experience. The threat, probably the threat of living on the edge as far as life is concerned, it sharpens the mind. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you more stories as far as Jerry Catino is concerned, that ultimately I came to realize that Jerry Catino held sway over Meyer Lansky and Doc Statcher.
Well, really?
And ands, ifs, and buts. When Longie's woman died, either by his own hand or by the hand of others, which I believe was by the hand of others.
I believe in the latter as well.
Okay. Jerry Catino ultimately held sway over the Jews. So anybody that says that Meyer Lansky or Longy, yes, up to a certain point, they had respect, equal respect as far as the Jews were concerned. Once Longy died, Meyer left for Israel July 1970. Jerry Katina was the undisputable boss. Now, how did I find that out? I was in Israel September 1970. A month before I was scheduled to go to Lagos, Nigeria to run a Bally slot machine operation.
You actually met Lansky in Israel, right?
For Meyer Lansky's operation. And Doc Statcher, who was deported by Robert Kennedy in 1963.
Wow.
On a deal that you said you leave the United States of America, will drop income tax charges against Doc Statcher, was equal with Longy Swellman, equal with Meyer Lansky, equal with Benny Siegel. He left for Israel.
He's
now,
not as well known, though. I mean, just in terms of...
he was not well known at all. And your people, when they hear this interview, they're going to probably want to go to the Google and Google the name of Joseph Doc Statcher. He was equal with Lepke Buchhalter, with Jake Gura Shapiro, Dutch Schultz. He was equal. And he was the most brilliant, sharp. The man had a razor blade sharp brain. He was that great. Anyways, he was living at the old Sheraton Hotel in Tel Aviv. And I was there to collect money from guys that owed me money all over Europe before I went to Africa. I used to make the rounds, and guys on the under invoicing used to hand me that was the money that was the undeclared money. So Doc Statcher told me, you'll be for Shabbat lunch, Saturday lunch, be at the hotel. I want to introduce you to a friend of mine. And all of a sudden, who walks in was Meyer Lansky. So Meyer Lansky sits down, and it was very cordial, wonderful man. Spent the entire afternoon. He reminded me of that my father and he were old friends going back to the days that he and his brother Jake and Benny Siegel used to come to Newark, New Jersey, stay at the old Riviera Hotel on the corner of Clinton Avenue and High Street, and come to see Longy and Doc. And we had a wonderful afternoon. There must have been about a dozen guests at the table, and everybody, of course, was thrilled to meet Meyer Lansky. And Doc Statcher was quite a character. At the end of the meal, everybody is left, and I was left alone with Meyer Lansky and with Doc Statcher. And sure enough, Doc Statcher says, we're going to the end of the lobby of the hotel so that we can converse and nobody hears us. So we go to the end of the hotel lobby, and Meyer Lansky and Doc says, tell us what's the story with Jerry Katina. I said, well, there was no iPhones, there was no Zooms, there was no way of texting. What's emails? What's the story? I said, well, he's been locked up for refusal to testify at a New Jersey State grand jury on the question of organized crime, and he and 18 others were locked up for refusal to testify at grand jury after being granted immunity. And he's locked up, and the courts told him, the judge told him, you want to talk? You got the key. You own the key to the cell. You talk? You go out. And of course, nobody talked. And Jerry Katina remained there for 5.5 years, along with the others. I think Jerry probably did the most, but eventually the Supreme Court released him. But that's another story. Anyways, Mr. Lansky stood up at that point and said, it was nice meeting you, son. And he did tell me, when you see your name in the newspapers, don't wait, run. They made me bigger than Al Capone, he says to me. And that's why I'm here in Israel. It's nice meeting you, and gets up and he left. The next night, I was supposed to go for dinner with Doc some old friend of mine owed me money. Comes in, customer, guys that bought gambling machines for operating in the Arab territories. Right? They used to operate slot machines in back rooms in both Israel proper and in Samaria, Judea, in the occupied territories. That's what they called the occupied territories at the time. And before the first Intifada. Anyways, hands me a $5,700 cash. He says, "Here's the money I owe you. Thanks, Myron." And Doc says to me after Nachman, the guy's name was Nachman. He lives in Doc Statcher says to me, "Give me the money. When you go back to Jersey, go see Abe. Abe Green was my father's partner." He said, "He'll give you the money." When you're a kid and you're a member of Kosher Nostra, you don't ask questions. You hand the old man the money. Right? Yeah. And the money, I go home. I made my trip, collect all my money, go home. I'm ready to go over to Africa. And I go to see Abe. He said, I said, "I was in Israel. I seen Doc. He sends his regards. By the way, I give him $5,700. He told me to come see you, pick up the money." He used to call me Mike. He says, "Mike, come back Monday." Okay, I come back Monday and go to see him, and he says to me, "What are you doing here?" I says, "Abe, you told me to come back today. For what?" For the money I gave Doc." He says, "Where'd you see Doc?" I said, "In Israel." I said, "Did you forget what I told you? I was here." He says to me, "Get 57. What is this all about? Get out of here. When aren't you supposed to be in Africa fixing those machines, the slot machines?" And again, you're Kosher Nostra. You do not ask any questions.
So since you got beat for the money?
No. You pick yourself up and you walk out.
Yeah.
Those people don't beat anybody.
Oh, yeah, there's
okay?
No.
No. I'm sent to Africa to run slot machines. I can steal $5,700 every day, but no. You don't steal and you don't get robbed.
Yeah.
All right, I go to Africa. They made a deal with two Arab gangsters from Beirut, Mohammed Fawaz and Yusuf Haider. I love those guys. I loved all my Lebanese Arab in Nigeria. They were the greatest. If they spoke the truth, it was purely an accident. But once you got the hang of things, once you figured out who they are and what they're all about, you either love them or you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. Yeah. All right. And so I had great, fantastic experience. It was time to come home for a break. Come home February. 6 months later, call up Abe. Abe, he says, "Let's have dinner. I'll pick you up. Get to come to the office. We're going to New York." He liked to eat in Patsy's on 56th.
Oh yeah, I just passed that.
That was the place all of them used to go. Frank Branny, Frank Costello, Shuggy, Abe. Everybody went to the Patsy's on 56th Street. So we eat dinner on the way home. I told them all about Africa, about the deal. It was a crazy deal. Dino Cellini, Alex Wilms. They misjudged. They made the mistake of believing in Arab. All right, love the guys, but how can you believe them? But on the way home, I says, "Abe, I never got that $5,700 from Doc." He said, "Well, send him a cablegram. Tell him you never got the money." All right. I said to myself, "That's a waste of money," but Kosher Nostra. Yeah. Joseph Stature, Hotel Sheraton. I never got the money from Abe. That's it. Eventually, the Arabs bought back the deal. I came home, and about a week, 2 weeks, I'm home. I get a phone call. "Mike, did you eat your lunch yet?" I just got done eating. I says, "No, Abe, I never ate." Well, good. Meet me at the Red Rooster. There was a little place behind on Route 22 in Union, behind the motel over there. I said, okay. I meet him. He hands me a paper bag, 25,000 bonus from Africa, which I was entitled to, and another 5,700.
Wow.
And he says
Back then.
no, wait a minute. It's not a question of back then. Then he says to me, next time you're in Israel, you don't give Doc a nickel dime or a quarter. Now, what's the story? You put the dots all together. All right. Now you go back. It's a flashback. Go back to September 1970 in the Sheraton Hotel in Tel Aviv.
Yeah.
And in the corner of the lobby of the hotel, it wasn't just Doc alone. It was Meyer together with Doc asking about Jerry Katina. Why were they asking about Jerry Katina? Very simple. Very simple. Every time I used to stay at the old Hotel Sheraton, the guy at the desk, he says to me, is that old man Doc Snatcher, isn't he your uncle? I says, yeah, he's my uncle. He said, let me tell you a story about your uncle Doc. So when the 67, what was this? It was the 67. When the 67 Six-Day War, the Israel, Doc Snatcher went to the airport and took a flight to Geneva, Switzerland. He come back, and in those days, the vaults in a hotel were behind the lobby.
Yeah, it used to be, yeah.
It wasn't in your room.
Correct.
So this concierge at the hotel, being a nosy Jew, he watches Doc as Doc took on his trousers, opened, had a money belt.
Yeah.
Empties a money belt after he comes back from Geneva and empties it in the vault. All right?
Yeah.
In the safety deposit box in the hotel.
Yeah.
All right? Geneva. In 1967 or 66 or 67, I went to Geneva. I was sent to that hotel to open up a Swiss bank account. That was the hotel that was used, called the Banque International Banque du Crédit. It was owned by a fellow by the name of Tibor Rosenbaum, who was a hero in the Budapest occupation during the Holocaust. His man, it'll come to me in just a second. His man was the guy that used to come from Geneva to Miami.
Yeah.
All right, and pick up the suitcases of the monies of the rake-offs coming out of Vegas. And that money was put on a Swiss Air flight and taken to the Geneva, and the monies were deposited in the Swiss bank accounts.
Wow. So
in that particular bank. All right. Now, what was Meyer Lansky and Doc Snatcher inquiring about Jerry Katina's health, political status, or what? They wanted to know if he was free, because Jerry Katina was the one that ruled on who got the money on the rake-offs from Vegas.
Oh, really?
Jerry Katina was the powerhouse. The powerhouse.
I didn't know that.
Nobody knows that. Now they know about it. Now they know about it. I'm 80. I'm 2 weeks shy, 3 weeks shy of being 85.
God bless.
So it's you fellas can enjoy real history after I'm gone.
You have a question? Did you know Bobby Covino from Boston? He was in John Ruiz's camp. Great guy. Bobby Covino. Curious.
I'm going to tell you no. I'm going to tell you the truth. If I know somebody, I know somebody. If I don't know somebody,
well, speaking of people you know, and part of the reason why we do this show is to kind of unpack like who they were in terms of their stature, how they got there, their characteristics. So you mentioned some heavyweights, Jerry Katina, Meyer Lansky, even in the sense Sammy the Bull in the life. And I'm going to get stuff for it, but so what made let's not include Sammy, but what made Meyer, Katina, Costello, even what made those guys different than other people that day, and what are the characteristics did you learn?
Very good question, excellent question, Tommy. Jerry Katina, when you walked into the office on Route 22 in Springfield, Runyon Sales
It's around the corner.
on Fadham Road. Okay.
Yeah.
So he had a desk in the corner. He had nothing on the desk except a telephone and 4 newspapers. He used to have the Manchester Guardian, the Christian Science Monitor, the New York Times, and the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah.
All right. The man self-educated, and he carried himself together with Abe Green. Abe Green was a Jewish immigrant from Poland, came here at the age of 3, struggled to learn the English language.
Yeah.
But they had there was a natural quality about these people that they wanted to rise to the top. Whether it was Meyer Lansky, Jerry Katina, whether it was Frank Costello, whether it was all of them. These people self-educated. They wanted to know as much as humanly possible what going around in the world. I used to eat lunch as a kid every day with Jerry Katina. He would take a bunch of us out, go to the diner.
Yeah.
The diner in Springfield. There was a
Yeah.
diner in Springfield at the roundabout.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So we would go. Basically, that was the place that we would go, and Jerry Katina would love to engage conversations about history and so forth. He was destined to rise higher. So when they picked somebody to be a leader, that person went through a number of tests in order to achieve that level. They, you combine the street smarts together with self-education as far as every aspect of the human enterprise, and that was their accomplishment. Abe Longie's Wellman, the same thing. He was very quality. They were quality guys.
So because
they were multi-sides, of course, to the person.
Well, so I agree with that. Not that.
Let me go back to the story, because this is a very good.
This is
very good. So let me go back to the story of Abe Green. Right?
Yeah.
Abe Green says, Mike, you come see me Monday.
Yeah.
I come see him Monday, and he acted like I never was there before, right? Okay. Let me translate that for you into English.
Yeah.
He didn't have the power. As powerful as he was, he had the scepter of power of Jerry Katina.
Yeah.
It wasn't his call at that point. He needed to communicate with Mr. Katina. Mr. Katina at that point was incarcerated for refusal to testify in grand jury. So they had to send a message to, I can't remember, it was a prison near down south towards Trenton, and had to wait for the answer to come back from Mr. Katina. Mr. Katina's message obviously was, do not give Myron the 5,700. Not because Mr. Katina doesn't love me like,
Yeah.
It was because I was the convenient instrument to be used to convey the message to Doc Stacher that his rake-off was completely turned off. Because if you gave Myron the 5,700, he'll never call Doc.
Yeah.
If he doesn't get the 5,700,
oh shit! I didn't think of that.
He would call up Doc and says, "Doc, I never got the 5,700."
So he was playing chess while everybody else was playing checkers.
It's very good statement. Very good statement. Absolutely.
So hold on, this is important. All right, so you got a guy like Jerry Katina, obviously very powerful. You mentioned that. So here's the thing, right? Education, you know this, and going to be soon 85 years. God bless. Me, I'm going to be 4. When's your birthday? January what?
I can't remember. I got Alzheimer's.
Mine's December 29th, so we'll celebrate at least my birthday together.
There you go.
So no, but one thing I learned as I get older, and don't get me wrong, it's important to be educated in terms of traditional sense, but it's more important to be educated, not just street smarts, but just general knowledge.
Both. Both.
So when you talk to somebody, so for example, he came over, we had a quick espresso, spoke Spanish to my wife, Italian to me, and English to you guys, right? So when you are worldly and you have information, people have a better propensity to relate to you. You know what I
So
mean?
you have a better propensity to relate to people.
Correct.
All right.
Correct.
So when you meet a person, all right, it's extremely important to find that common interest,
Yeah.
right? And
Yep.
and greet everybody with a positive attitude.
Correct.
All right.
Positive energy.
Okay. That I learned from being around. Actually, I'm affiliated with Chabad Orthodox Judaism, and one of the primary is everything positive.
God bless.
You make everything positive. It's you win people like that. I always tell these kids when they shake hands, they give you one of these loose.
Yeah, the soft.
I said, no, that's not the way you ever shake hands with a person. When you meet somebody, you grip their hand, you squeeze their hand, you look them in the eye, and when you say it's nice to meet you, you better be damn sincere.
Correct.
All right?
Yeah.
Anything less than that, you're not being a real person.
Good point.
Okay? You're not being a mensch. Now, what is
Not
this
being
one?
a mensch. I love it. Okay, did you know Louis Mintz from Brooklyn? He's supposedly close to Meyer Lansky, and he mentioned you more than once.
Lou Mintz. No, I'm sorry. I don't know Lou Mintz, but I will say this, that everybody was close to Meyer Lansky.
Yeah.
All right. The next question. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so there was two. One, did you ever work with any Ireland or Irish? And then also, did you work with the Greeks?
Worked with Greeks and Irish, yeah. But more so with Greeks.
Okay.
So that subject, I started to go to Greece in 1959. I used to sell jukeboxes, used secondhand jukeboxes.
Oh, nice.
I sold all the Greek importers and so forth. And so I spent years in Greece going all around selling pinball machines and then gambling devices and so forth. Guys that were sneaking gambling.
Yeah.
So there was a kid that worked for me by the name of worked for a customer by the name of Lagonicus, John Lagonicus, and the kid's name was George Demu. George Demu. Oh, this is a great. So I needed technicians when I was running slot machines in Africa. I brought guys from Greece and from Indonesia, from the States, from Vegas. One of the guys I bring was George Demu. George Demu was a Greek kid technician. When I came back to New York in 1977, I decided to open up the city of New York, reopen it after Fiorello LaGuardia closed it down in 19. LaGuardia closed it down in 1941. I reopened it in 1977. I started with Frankie Loke.
Oh, yeah.
Frankie Loke, Angelo, they called him Cockeyed Angelo, Johnny Mash, his son, all that guys up in the Bronx.
Yeah.
I started with slot machine operation with them. I started with another crew from East Harlem. I started with another crew from the Bronx.
The Bananas were big. I know the Gabinos were. The Bananas.
Everybody was in it. Everybody was in it.
Yeah.
That's not the. That's the everybody, Tommy.
Yeah.
Now the Greeks, George Demu. I needed the technicians to fix slot machines in New York.
Yeah.
Right? I brought guys from Ireland, from England, from Argentina, from Uruguay, from Israel, and I bring George Demu. George Demu hangs out in Astoria, which was the Greek area. Yeah. And he meets, and he goes, he looks, he says, I want to know who the boss he finds. The boss's name is Spiros Valensis.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So he tells Spiros Valensis, my guy is Myron Sugerman at the slot machines. I said, Spiros, George calls me. He said, he wants to come meet you on Saturday night. It was warm weather. We were living in Livingston.
Yeah.
I told my wife, barbecue steaks. So Spiros comes on a Saturday night, dressed in a suit.
Yeah.
$4,000 suit.
Yeah. He was very powerful. He's another guy that
Well,
not as well known.
he was he was the boss as far as the Greeks were concerned. He ran all the clubs and all the Barbuda games in Astoria. Now he comes to meet me, and he sits at the table. We give him a steak, and then he tells us the story of his life. And then he tells me, he says, "Do you know how I became the boss of Astoria?" I says, "I'm curious. I don't know the story." Spiros, what's the story? He takes off his unbuttons his tie and buttons his shirt, and he shows all the bullet holes. Ooh. All right. He says, "That's how I became the boss of Astoria." I says, "Clara, give Spiros. He's entitled to another steak. Give us a his steaks are good." Now, he said, "Let's do the slot machine business." And over the years, we took a serious. We liked each other. Yeah. All right. Spiros always told me, "Don't you ever forget. This is Hebreos. You're the Jew. I'm the Greek. Don't ever forget you're not the Italian." All right. We went to his kids' communion, confirmation, baptism. Yeah. What a party! They were fantastic. Anyways, Spiros calls me one day, and he says, "Come on, I'm going to buy you dinner. Come to Astoria." I go to Astoria, and he says to me, "I want 30 machines. I want you to put in my clubs. I want you to operate the machines." He said, "I'll give you 5,000 a week." I says, "No." He says, "He's Hebreos." He starts cursing me in Greek. "You lousy Jew, you." "Take it easy, Spiros. Take it easy. Calm down." He says, "I'm offering you $5,000 a week, and you're not accepting it. What the hell will you accept?" I says, "Give me $2,000 a week." He says, "Wait a minute, hold on one second. I'm offering you 5, and you're offering for 2 instead of 5. You'll take 2 instead of 5. What's going on here?" I said, "Well, Spiros, I clocked you over the years. I know you're pretty good. I'm going to do the business with you. I'm going to put the 30 machines. I'm going to take the first 5,000. And then the following week, you're going to call me up and say, 'Come over, Sugarman. I'm going to buy you dinner.' But before I buy the dinner, this is Hebreos Klefti. You're a Jewish thief. You took that 5,000 off me. You're a greedy little bastard. But by taking 2,000, you're hooked. You can't complain now. I'll come every week. I'll pick up my $2,000. All right." Oh, shit. "And you got no reason to rob me. Is that right?" He says, "You smart Jew. You're a smart Jew." And we went on for years. Now, I get a call one day on a Monday morning. He says, "You got them horse machines?" I said, "Spiros, I just bought 56 quarter horse machines in Paris from a guy that tried to run them in France, and they knocked him out. They wouldn't let him run the machines. They're 56 machines. I paid him $2,000 a piece. Truth. $2,000. And so sure enough, he says to me, "Look, I got a couple of guys here from Canada, two Greek brothers from Canada, from Toronto." And he says, "They want to buy the machines. I'll call you back." I said, "Okay, it's up to you." Calls me back. He says to me, "I just sold the 56 machines for $3,500 each. We made $1,500 each. Split it 50-50. You're going to make $80,000. You make 40. I'll make 40." He said, "I'll call you back." I said, "Oh, fine." I said, "But Spiros, let me tell you something. What you did for these two brothers is a kiss." He said, I said, "These machines are making fortunes of money in Toronto in the clubs." He says to me, "Well, they mentioned some friends from Montreal, some guys." I said, No. I'm letting you know, you're giving these guys a hug and a kiss." He said, "Very good. Okay, good enough." I never hear again from Spiros. Later that afternoon, some Puerto Rican kid, Juanito. Juanito, you remember I bought a couple of video poker machines? Yeah, go ahead, Juanito. What do you? He said, I got a couple of guys here that want to buy quarter horse machines. You got a couple of guys that want to buy quarter horse machines. Yeah, you have those machines? I says, Juanito, bring them over. Sure enough, little Johnny brings them over. The door opens. Carlos Perez is Filos. I start to tell him, good afternoon, my friends. Filomu, how are you, my friends? How do you know we're Greeks? Because you're the two brothers that were with Spiros this morning in Astoria. He says, Hebreos. You're the Jew. I says, yeah, I'm the Jew. He says, oh, that's very good. He said, we can do business. We can do business. Of course we can do business. Back in Astoria. You started with Astoria.
You tried to backdoor Spiros. They tried to backdoor Spiros.
I said, we'll go back to Astoria. Of course, no problem. But we can't do business. No, you were at Spiros. Johnny, go ahead. You're finished. Go ahead. Go back to Brooklyn. Guys, what do you want to do? Do you want to go back to Spiros in Astoria, or you want to go back to Toronto? You got one or two choices.
Wow.
Well, we need the machines. He says, but on the other hand, maybe Spiros isn't going to be. I can't guarantee anything about Spiros. I'm Myron. He's Spiros. Yeah. All right. I'm the Hebreos.
Yeah, that's right.
He's the Greek. All right. So you tell me what you want to do. Well, the conference in about 15 minutes later, they come. We'll go to Astoria. I said, okay, very good. The kid Louis, start the car up. Louis, we're going back to Astoria. We're going to Astoria. He had a place called the Grecian Gardens, a bar on Ditmas Boulevard.
Yeah.
Ditmas. Okay, very good. Walk in, the bartender. I said, call Spiros, find out call him wherever he is. Tell him his friend from Jersey is here. Okay, his friend from Jersey calls him up. 5 minutes later, who comes running through the front door of the bar? Spiros. He spots the two brothers, and he goes, gives me a big wink like that, and he grabs the two brothers and he hugs and kisses them. He says, oh my God, isn't this fantastic? What a world. That's Myron, that's
what a coincidence.
What a coincidence. This is fantastic. Absolutely. This calls for a party. We're going to go to Atlantic City. We're going to gamble. We're going to play. We're going to drink. I get the broads, the gominos, and we're going to have a Spiros. I'll see you. I got to go home. I got people waiting for me. He said, okay. 3 days later, phone rings, Spiros. Send Louis over, pick up $50,000 cash. Okay. Louis goes to
10 more than he promised.
No. Yeah. 50,000 was the deposit.
Okay.
He says, and ship the machines from Europe, ship them to Toronto. Okay, so we shipped the machines. The machines wind up in Toronto. A month later, Spiros calls me. We're going to Toronto to pick up the rest of the money. I said, fine. Meet me at the LaGuardia airport. We flew Spiros, myself, and I bring my top technician, Glenn, the kid that knows how to run the quarter horse machines. Yeah. Okay, so we go to Toronto. We take a cab. We go to a place, and a hole in the wall. Now there's no two Greeks. There's a dozen Greeks, brothers, cousins, everybody that put up money for the machines. Right? And Spiros said, how are you guys? But this is Spiros. Guy Spiros Valencia. Oh, the boss of the Greeks in America. Very good. Spiros starts to talk to him in Greek, and he says, where are the machines? He said, they're in the next room. I'll go to the door, and sure enough, there's a warehouse with the machine. Spiros says, oh my God. Oh, this is unbelievable. Guys, we ordered the little machines. They shipped the big machines, right? And my friend over here, all right, he had to pay $3,000 more.
Just to ship?
No, for the big machines. The difference in price between a little machine and a big machine is $3,000 more per machine, all right?
The upsell.
I'm not going to let you guys lose your money, all right? Louis Red used to say like this, Myron, if you're ever in the forest and you're hunting, all right, and you see a Greek and a fox, don't shoot the fox. Now,
that's funny. Sorry. Don't agree with it because the whole new woke world would shut down my channel. That was very funny.
now these guys, they got now the machines don't cost $3,500; they cost $6,500. Spiros puts his hand in his pocket. He says, "Fellas, I'm not going to let you lose your money, and I'm not going to let you overpay, and I'm not going to let this Jew over here lose."
What did you take some of the machines?
I'm giving you back your $50,000. No, Spiros, no. Let's see how we can work it out. Make a long story short, they confab, and after about an hour, they come back and say, "We'll take 20 machines. We can afford 20 machines. Here's your money." Now Spiros and I are ahead of the game, 18,000. We owe 36 machines. I said, "Spiros, let's get out of here." All right, where are we going? I said, "The other side of Toronto. We're going to Concord." Val, Jewish kid from same place my grandparents come from.
Yeah.
I got a Hanukkah gift for you. What's the Hanukkah gift? It's not Hanukkah. I said, "It's okay. I'm coming. Come over." He and his father. I'm giving you 36 quarter horse machines. All right? I'm not charging you. We're partners 3 ways.
I'm consigned.
Are you serious? Are you serious? I'm giving you 36. Send your truck. Here's the address. Go pick up 36 machines. We ran those machines for 5 years. All right.
Wow.
And then,
what just out of curiosity, roughly, what is your third, or what was the total take, roughly?
It was generous.
It was infinitesimal. It was a lot more than exponential versus.
It was generous. It was generous. I can't even begin to remember.
Yeah.
But after 5 years, what Val and his technicians, Russian Jewish brains, re-engineered the quarter horses so that the machines, the mathematics of it was so seductive that the machines made 5 times, 10 times more money after he re-engineered it.
I was going to ask
He
that.
gave me back the 36 machines. I sent them to Brazil. I operated them. I'll tell you the story in Brazil.
Well, hold on real quick because I want to kind of unpack that real quick. What I got from the story of the 2,000 versus the 5,000, what I got the story here, there's an Italian expression. You probably heard, "Eat the eggs, not the chicken."
Right.
A lot of people want to get the big deal.
No.
Kill the chicken, you kill the eggs. Versus you go for the eggs in business, and then you eat for life.
Tommy, greed kills more people than bullets.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I hooked him.
Yeah.
And he said to me, "You son of a bitch, you son of a bitch, you Jew bastard, you with this, you screwed me. You stopped me from robbing you." All right.
Yeah.
I loved him.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
Yeah, what happened to him?
Spiros was involved. His name was brought into a case which he really is not involved in by Fat Petey Chioda.
Yeah, because the Greeks were usually took under the Luccheses for a while.
He was with the Luccheses.
Yeah.
Fat Petey Chioda, they shot him.
Correct.
Remember how many bullets they put through
like
him?
20.
Right?
Yeah.
And he survived.
Yeah.
Somehow or another, he implicated Spiros in the shooting.
That wasn't the Greeks.
It was Luccheses, but he threw his name
They
around.
roped him in.
Threw his name into the equation.
Wow.
And Spiros got a 45-year sentence.
Jeez.
Spiros used to tell me, he said, "Myron, here's my game plan." He said, I used to go every Sunday to go pick up the money.
Yeah.
He had a club on top of the Gratian Gardens on Ditmas and 30th. And when I would walk in the place, all right, he'd be fast asleep. He'd been there for 3-4 nights, days and nights, never went home. So I wake up, we'd settle up the money.
Yeah.
All right. He'd go home, shower, shave, put on a new freight, and then go to the racetrack and lose all the money that he made during the week. He'd call all the Shylocks in New York Monday morning. All the Shylocks would come, give him plenty of money. All right. And he was refinanced to run for the rest of the week.
Brilliant.
He used to tell me, he says, "Listen to me. One day, I'm going to call all the Shylocks in New York and tell them, I'm going to double down, triple down. Give me all the money you got. All right. you son of a bitches, give me all the money you got. I need right now, double up, triple up, and so forth. I'm going to take it and put it in a suitcase, and I'm going to go from Astoria right to Kennedy Airport.
Yeah.
I'm going to get on an Olympic airline, and I'm going to go on a one-way trip to Athens, Greece. I'm never going to come back.
Love it.
Unfortunately, the killing of Fat Petey Chioda implicated Spiros,
I don't know.
and Spiros got a 45-year sentence. He's in Terry Horton. And I just recently caught up with the Greek kid Nick Christophers. Also,
the author, yeah.
You know
Yeah,
Nick. Okay, so that was the Spiros story.
Interesting. There's a question about area in Brooklyn. He just don't want to know names, but did you ever deal with any guys from Fort Greene, Brooklyn? You don't give names, just kind of a generic question.
Yeah, we dealt with everybody. Everybody came. Everybody was.
Yeah.
From every section of New York, whether it was Dominicans, whether it was Cubans, whether it was Greeks, Irish, Italians, Russians, Israelis, and so forth, everybody found me.
So one of the things we talk about is how, and Mike Francis talks about this a lot, is how the government is basically taken over. And you got to get on this guy's email trail. It's a private one, but it's chock full of information. We know the biggest mafia right now is U.S. government. Right? Let's call
it always was.
It always was. Well, now it's formalizing, and now they took over rackets like gambling,
of course,
weed, whatever. Well, not federal, but state
slot machines, the numbers, lottery, the sports betting, everything. It's
so my question,
inevitable.
My question to you though is, well, unfortunately, there wasn't many Jerrys after Jerry Katina died, but the mob was pretty smart around Prohibition. Prohibition made the mob here in the U.S., right? And they saw that it was illegal, and then it became legal, and they still kind of kept their hands in the pot.
And you had Rothstein.
Well, correct. So then why didn't the mob, especially the Italian mob specifically, know that, okay, we have these gambling machines. This is going to be legal someday. Let's position ourselves. So once it becomes legal, we will control it on the other side of the fence. They didn't transition well.
They did it. Las Vegas.
Yeah, but then the corporations came in and pushed them out. Because agreed. But
it was also there's a generation change.
Yeah.
All right, and everything moves on. Everything. Listen, no, Jerry Katina. When he told me about Jerry Katina, there was a party at an old timer. Was very close with my father, with Jerry Katina, Al Maniaci. He was the biggest jukebox and gaming operator in New York. We're down in Florida, it became big down there. And he sent me a message, September 13th, 1991. Your father's not here, but your family was very close with us. We're having a 70th birthday party for my wife. And the old man specifically asked if you're going to be there.
Oh, wow.
And I hadn't seen the old man in years. And I made it my business to go down.
Naturally.
All right. It was like going to see my father.
Yeah.
All right. That's the affection that I had for Jerry Katina, or what he represented in terms of family history.
Yeah.
So I was sitting at the table by myself, and Jerry Katina walks in. Everybody, of course, runs over. See Mr. Katina, hug him. Oh, Mr. Katina, how are you now, Jerry? Oh, Chico, Jerry Katina. And he sees me, and he says, like this with the finger. He sit next to me, and my wife, Kay, Mrs. Katina. I grew up with these people.
Yeah.
So I sit down with them. He didn't speak to anybody that night. Not yes, everybody. Not that he
beyond a cursory conversation.
Not that he disrespected anybody, but people realized that he was engaged with me, and people were smart enough not to come over.
Correct.
They didn't know. Yeah, of course, Sugar's son. Some people knew I was Sugar's. Most of the people knew I was Sugar's son. It's not that I was so important, but Jerry Katina, who else is he going to, at 89 years of age, we have a need.
Yeah.
I'm 80, I'm going to be 85.
Yeah.
Tommy.
Yeah.
I'm talking today. I have a need to tell my story.
Yeah.
And it's a different world today, so I can tell my story to Tommy LaVecchia and to his wonderful audience.
Yeah.
Jerry Catino, who was he going to be able to tell the story to? There was no Tommy LaVecchia, and you don't do those things in those
Correct,
days.
not public. Yeah.
So Jerry Catino wanted to tell his story, and who is he going to tell it to? Who is he comfortable with? This is Sugar's son, who, by the way, when Louis Red came to claim me, all right, obviously, even though he was retired, officially retired, Jerry Catino, I'm sure that Louis Red sent a message to Jerry Catino that I am taking Myron for me, since Myron today has become a major earner as the founding father, rehabilitating, bringing back to life the slot machine business in New York, which became a monster for everybody. Everybody made money with me. That's why, by the way, I wasn't greedy. I let everybody earn. I made sure everybody earned. And that's why I'm able to sit in this chair next to you instead of, you'll be visiting me at the Mount Lebanon Cemetery in Island, New Jersey. Yeah.
Good point. What about, obviously you dealt with,
one second. It's okay. Yeah, Mikey.
Just be recorded though.
Yeah, Mike.
When you come over to Bridge, call me. I'm not going to meet you at the shop. I got to leave.
Love you. So when I come over, what bridge?
Come over to, I don't know, try to come out like Cafe Moon or Page Avenue out that way.
You want me to come on the Parkway then?
Yeah.
Come over the Parkway and come over the which bridge is that? That takes you to Staten Island. Outer Bridge, right?
Yeah, you're not too far from
the same place. I'm going to meet you at the same place I met you last time at the Plaza Diner.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Okay. Thanks, Mikey.
Beautiful. So, one question I have though is, and you bring a great point.
This is a great interview.
No, I mean, I got to be honest. This is gold. I mean, I like the funny thing is, I would have no problem if I'm the only one ever watch this and learn from this, because that's so much knowledge.
But it's not just not a question of knowing names.
Yeah.
It's not a question of knowing names. It's to get into to show you how sharp these guys were.
Correct.
All right?
This is gold. Well, so I got to have a question, because you're unusual in the sense where you dabbled in many cultures, but immerse yourself and live it. You're not the guy who comes in and says the 3 words in Spanish. My wife's like, oh my God, he knows his stuff. And then you ask a question and you don't know. No, you speak Spanish, you speak Italian, you traveled, right? So because of the unique position, I always wondered, right? Let's talk about the Greeks and the Jewish people, where they found the Jews, the Jews, be respectful, where why was crime transitionary for them, right? Let's make some money while we can, and then our kids will do better. Whereas the Italians kind of use crime as a way of life. Why do you think?
So,
and real quick, you're probably one of the only person who could answer this question is alive in the United States right now, in my opinion.
So, it's an excellent question. The Jew did not. This was not culturally historically cultural as it is with the Italians.
Okay.
When the Italians right, came from southern, they immigrated from southern Italy.
Yeah.
All right. It's already a history.
Yeah.
Remember, if you know your history of the south of Italy, it was occupied going all the way back in time by the Greeks, by the Moors, by the Spanish, by the Normans,
even before that,
by the Normans, long before that. I remind everybody in the movie The Godfather. Right? Do you remember Michael Corleone's in Sicily?
Yeah.
And he's talking to the tavern owner, and he's telling him about this beautiful young lady, Apollonia.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And the old man says, una greca, una greca.
Una greca di Roma.
Greca, she's a Greek.
Italiana.
Like a Greek, all right? So, it's very interesting, fascinating. I've studied a tremendous history about southern Italy.
Yeah.
All right?
Oh, I could tell.
And I taught you today a word called mezzogiorno. Mezzogiorno means midday. That's the reference. When you're talking about southern Italy, we use the expression mezzogiorno, which means midday. Why? because the sun is the brightest at midday in southern Italy. And of course, I am fascinated by history, and particularly the culture of South Italy. Why? Because according to the Jewish religion, all right, it's in the book of Moses, the Torah. According to, we have the sons, the patriarchs, which, by the way, the Christian Church accepts exactly the Old Testament of it, except for the elimination of certain rules and regulations. But the basic, the patriarch, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. So Jacob is the son of Isaac. He's the twin brother of Esav.
Okay.
Right? Esav, E-S-A-U.
Okay.
Esav, according to the greatest rabbinical commentator, one of the two greatest, was called Rashi. He was from Provence, France. One of the descendants of Esav is a prince called Magdiel, M-A-G-D-I-E-L.
Okay.
According to Rashi, the second equal greatest commentator, he says Esav is Italkim Shel Yevan, which in Hebrew means the Italy of Greece.
Oh.
The southern Italians are related to the Jews.
Interesting.
Let me go a little bit further, all right? Fascinating history,
Yes.
right? We had as many as possible 50,000 to 100,000 Jews living in Sicily, all right, up until 1492. Does that year resonate with you? When Columbus left the port of Cadiz on the, I think it was in September the 2nd, or August the 2nd, or September 2nd, 1492, he leaves the port of Cadiz. It was according to the Alhambra decree, which was issued by Ferdinand and Isabel, and expelled the Jews from Spain, from the Iberian Peninsula.
Interesting.
Including the Kingdom of Sicily, which was under Spanish domination.
Correct.
The 50 to 100,000 Jews that lived there either were forced to convert or migrated to the north of Italy or went to the Ottoman Empire. That means that they integrated, intermarried with the local population.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
All right? For your listeners, all right?
I love it. I can listen to this guy. I can listen to it all day. I'm sorry about a little ambient noise in the back. I guess the kids like to have the meltdown together.
Oh, they're appreciating what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they get Uncle Myron's here, so they're excited. Did you ever meet Little Al Greco, Louis' son-in-law?
One second.
Yeah.
I'm in the midst of an interview. Hello.
Okay, just tell me.
I'm in an interview. I said goodbye.
I love it.
12 o'clock.
You gotta love the realness. So we'll be wrapping up soon. Did you ever meet? You know where I live. You're welcome. We'll do another one. We can do a series.
Al Greco is a terrific kid.
Yeah.
I know Al Greco when we were kids. I was 21 years of age, 1959. He was with Mikey Friccione. At the time they started a cigarette machine business. He was a wonderful guy, and I loved him. And he was Louis Red's son-in-law, and Louis Red, he was a professional. He was great, very wise man, and probably one of the wisest men I ever met. And the rule of wisdom is very interesting because you could be the wisest person on the face of the earth for the entire world, and sometimes you could be the least wise person for your own self.
That's a good point. Let me see. This is so interesting. Yeah, he's gonna come back, and we're gonna have. Do you have any other Meyer stories outside of that one, or any secondhand stories about Meyer?
Any
good parables?
I know many stories.
How about this? Give us. We're gonna, because I know you're gonna hit the road.
I'm gonna tell you.
Give us a good parable or story about Meyer Lansky that we could walk away.
Okay, everybody asks me what happened to Meyer Lansky's $300 billion.
Yeah, I was gonna say $300 million.
Okay. Meyer Lansky. I used to have lunch every month with Jimmy Blue Eyes.
Who's that?
Vincent, Jimmy Blue Eyes. Hello. He
Sorry,
was
I should know that.
Jimmy Blue Eyes was Meyer Lansky's the Genovese crime family again, which going back to Jerry Katina. Jimmy Blue Eyes was a high-ranking.
I just interviewed Rita Gigante the other day.
Hang on.
Yeah.
You're asking me one question at a time.
Sorry.
All right, I like it, Tommy, but you gotta raise your hand next time.
ADHD.
Gotta raise your hand next
Sorry.
time to ask a question. So Vincent Jimmy Blue Eyes, I used to eat lunch with him when he was already in his 90s. And I said to him, Jimmy, he said, I'm going to talk to you because I like you. All right. He says, your father, by the way, was involved with that Scopatone deal. Your father passed away. He said, I had a disagreement with Abe Green and with the other guys, Irving K. and so forth and so forth. He says, I wound up in jail for that. As a result of that, I went to jail for 4 years. But he said, let me tell you about Meyer. He said, Meyer died broke. I says, whoa, Jimmy, don't worry about the bullshit. He says, let me tell you the real story. Meyer Lansky had $16 million of his own money in the 50s invested in the Hotel Riviera in Havana, Cuba. My father was an investor for $100,000 with Abe Green in the Riviera Hotel in Havana, Cuba. All right. Okay. So, but Abe Green didn't want to commit perjury. They were both subpoenaed to grand jury. I was the one that carried the books for the bookkeeper for the Runyon. We went down to Trenton. I sat with Vito Genovese and Frank LaJury. When the photographers took the pictures, I was a 19-year-old kid. I was so happy that I was sitting next to Vito
Get
Genovese.
out of here.
They went like this and I went like this.
We're going to talk about that next time.
So anyways, Meyer Lansky invested $16 million. Who the hell could count $16 million in the 50s in Havana, Cuba, in the Riviera Hotel? Unfortunately, the American government miscalculated Castro. Castro descended from the Sierra Maestra, January 1st, 1959. By the way, Shuggy and Abe, my father's name, everybody called him Shuggy, they sold out to a fellow from Cleveland, Ohio. Longy got him a buyer from Cleveland, Ohio, bought their shares and gave them a profit. They got out 6 months before the revolution. Pure luck. Only because Abe said to Sugar, I don't want to lie at the grand jury that we're connected with Meyer Lansky, the Riviera Hotel. Meyer Lansky lost $16 million of his own money. Hello. That's only part of the equation. The other part is my suspicion that he probably was guarantor to other investors that put up their money in the Riviera Hotel and exchange shares of ownership in Las Vegas to offset some of that. Story number one. Ready for story number two? 16 million.
Absolutely.
Next story. All right. Next story was that at that point his power was diminished. His power was diminished.
Well, once Lucky got...
he had the scepter of power when Lucky Luciano was deported back to Sicily.
Correct.
He was given the scepter of power and he had it. But the Cuba situation, he really believed Cuba to the maximum. Batista trusted him to create the tourism and the legitimate casinos and so forth, the hotels of Havana. Meyer Lansky, I told you the story about Tibor Rosenbaum, the International Banque de Crédit.
Yes.
Everybody had their money on the rake-off invested in the International Banque de Crédit. You'll read Google, go to Google, the Swiss bank interceded, closed the bank down.
Ooh.
All that money wiped out.
Yeah.
All right? All that money that was in the International Banque de Crédit was wiped out. There was no FCIA, no Federal Credit Insurance. They blew their money. All right? Meyer Lansky at the same time was now subordinate to Vegas. All right? Yes, he still managed the distribution of the monies that came off the rake.
But he was in a subordinate position,
But he was in a subordinate position. He was no longer holding the scepter of power.
Yeah.
So 1970, they got a tip-off that Myron Lansky was going to be indicted for income tax evasion. They were running the Colony Club in London. Colony Club was next door to the Mayfair Hotel. I used to go to the Colony Club. I knew all the owners of the hotel, of the casino. Myron Lansky had a piece of that, and he was taking the comp money in here, all right? The money that was put here so that the guys, when they go to London, could gamble. They knew that Myron Lansky had the control over as far as that money was concerned. Oh, God, it was Terracino. Vincent Terracino was the informer in the case and said that he gave Myron Lansky $50,000, which Myron Lansky never declared, blah, blah, blah. To make a long story short, Vinny Terracino had Myron Lansky wasn't in the place that Terracino claimed he gave the money. And Myron Lansky, they had a second case. He eventually got acquitted, and he died
broke.
According to Jimmy, he gave his wife $300,000 street money.
Yeah.
All right, and the family's indigent today.
Wow.
All right.
Really quick, and you may or may not know this story. At the La Forge, and I don't know if it's Miami or wherever it is.
It's in Miami.
Yeah, and his stepson had a brush up with a son of a Genovese captain over like a $10 bill, something stupid. He kills the Genovese son,
he got killed.
and he got killed himself. So now I know it's a little crazy story. Like, was Meyer Lansky that about the life that when I'm assuming the Genovese family went to him and said, "Listen, like he killed a captain's son, your son's got to go." I'm assuming he had to okay that hit. I'm assuming
it wasn't a question of him okaying it.
Okay,
it was told.
Got it.
He was told the same thing as far as the killing of Benny Siegel.
Yeah, he was told.
Meyer.
That's it.
The gesture would go like this, Meyer.
Yeah, and that's it. Wow.
How many times you're going to keep asking a favor? No.
Good point.
All right. What I'm trying to explain here is reality. Is the reality of that world. Is the reality of the world. Not, well, did you know this guy? Did you know that guy? And so forth and so forth. Most important is to understand the dynamics of what creates the world like. What is the world like? And by the way, what I'm teaching, I hope that I'm teaching. What's this on there?
Get his reaction to Raimundi's claim of Meyer Lansky at Lufthansa. I think is anything for. Wait a second. Okay, so there's this guy that's out there. Okay, I don't know about the Meyer Lansky had nothing to do with Lufthansa, so I don't know why that's brought up. But number two, there's this guy out there, Anthony Raimondi, who essentially said his cousins killed the Pope. He's been on.
Okay, let's get back to reality.
We're gonna talk about Raimondi today.
We'll get back to reality.
Let's get back to reality.
I do want to say this as far as Myron Lansky is concerned, as far as Abe Zwillman and all of those people. All right, I'm an extremely proud Jew.
Yeah, God bless.
And I hope everybody is as equally proud of your heritage and your religion as I am proud of being born a Jew.
Yeah.
Okay. It's extremely, extremely important that you know your heritage, you know your history, you know your culture.
Correct.
And if you're proud, you convey a completely different kind of, not proud to the point where you stick a finger in somebody's eye.
Correct.
You're proud. I'm proud.
Yeah.
Right? Meyer was a proud Jew.
Yeah.
All right. Abe Zwillman was a proud Jew. Benny Siegel was proud. All of those guys were great.
Yeah.
They, by the way, they fought the American Nazi Party in the 1930s in New York. And there's a book called The Minutemen. It was written by a friend of mine by the name of Warren Grover. And they supplied weapons and arms to both Haganah and Irgun to help create the state of Israel when it was an illegal thing. And the one other thing I want to mention is that Meyer Lansky and Lucky Luciano cooperated with the Department of Navy during World War II.
To help with the war effort.
All right, for the war effort. So why don't we make another session?
We're gonna wrap this up.
Yeah,
we are. We're gonna do another show. We really appreciate everybody checking it out. Myron lives close. I work from home, so I'm sure we're gonna do this very soon. I want to give everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah. Any other
Happy Kwanzaa.
Happy Kwanzaa.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, guys.
Yeah.
I want to tell you something. Tommy LaVecchia is asked the great questions that need to be asked. So I really had a great time with this interview. This might be one of the best I ever had. All right.
Sonny, thank you so much, and I appreciate your time, and we'll see you guys
Love you
next
guys.
time.
Thanks so
Ciao.
much.
Ciao.